Hello, welcome to Fireside with Peter Adkison on Gen Con TV. On this show, we go in search of the untold stories behind your favorite games. And on this season, we are continuing our exploration of Dungeons and Dragons. We have teamed up with the Dungeon Masters Guild, who has been introducing me to the new voices of Dungeons and Dragons. And our guest today is Beth Ball. Now, Beth Ball has carved out a really interesting niche called Duet, and we're going to learn all about it. It's for playing one-on-one GM player sort of play, and she writes novels. She has a YouTube channel. She's doing it all. So we're going to hear all about that. So yeah, there you go. Beth, thank you for joining me on Gen Con TV.
Thank you for having me. Hello, everybody.
Hi. Yeah, okay, so I went off script there a little bit. That wasn't exactly what I said I was going to say about you, but I was inspired because I have been reading all about your various projects, and I think it's pretty cool. I can't wait to get into it.
Thank you.
You're welcome. But before we get into the projects, I have I like to learn a little bit more about you as Beth. Like, where were you raised? Where did you go to school? What did you study Dungeons and Dragons in school, or did you study something else? I mean, what's your story?
I unfortunately did not study Dungeons and Dragons at school. That would have been, I hope exciting. I'm sure it would have been exciting. So I grew up in Kingsport, Tennessee, and then I went to South Carolina for undergrad, back to Tennessee for a bit. I'm in North Carolina now working on my PhD in English. But I actually got into D&D because my husband started playing, and he asked me at the beginning if I wanted to play, and I was like, no, I just knew I wouldn't like it because I don't tend to like things with lots of rules.
Right,
Or
right.
I thought I didn't like things with lots of rules. And so then
And now, did you meet your husband in college? I mean, you said you were
sorry.
working on a PhD, you said, in English? Is that
I
right?
am right now.
Oh, you
Yeah.
are right now.
Mhm.
Oh, okay.
We met during our master's degree. So when I moved back to Tennessee to get my MA in English, we met
Okay.
and we were in the same program. And then we moved here for my PhD.
Oh, okay. So you were school, maybe not high school sweethearts, but school sweethearts at least, right?
Yeah, sure.
Okay, so yes, you were going into the how you got started in Dungeons and Dragons. Yeah,
Yes,
yeah.
sorry, I jumped ahead.
No, that's okay. It's all good. You can also jump back if you want at any point
Okay.
in time. You just don't pause. No pausing.
Okay.
Just
No.
jump forward or jump back. Either one's good.
Okay. So he played for about a year before I agreed to play, and I could not understand why something took up. He would play for 3-4 hours on Sundays
Sure.
with friends. I couldn't understand why it took so long. Because we were both like working extra jobs and stuff while I'm going through school, so we were really, really busy. And anyway, he was going to be DMing his first game. He'd been telling me about his fancy character and everything, and so I agreed to play a session for him DMing his first game. But kind
Oh,
of,
how
I know.
cute. That's
Yeah.
supportive. You didn't want to play, but he's starting
Hmm.
DMing, so you rolled up a character to play in his first game.
Hmm.
What did you
And
what did you roll up?
I was a ranger
A
with a
ranger.
wolf companion.
Oh, that sounds bogus for a starting character. I mean, that's pretty powerful.
I think we were level 5. I think we
Oh,
started. I don't
okay.
think I was level 1.
Oh, he didn't make you
Um,
start at first level and work your way up.
yeah,
No.
not for that very first session. I was for my very second session, but
He probably didn't want to
um,
kill you. Probably didn't want to kill you off accidentally.
yeah,
Your first level, first level characters can be a little squishy.
yes, you have to be really delicate with them.
Yeah.
But he was running. I think it's a most potent brew was the. I know it's somebody's module. It was really fun. Or no, Wolves of Welton or something. So I think it's level 5 maybe.
All right.
But alongside that, so I've been resisting and not sure. So I'm teaching at the university, and one of my students wrote. It was kind of like a mock example thing that I asked them to do, but she wrote about Duchess and dragons. I guess she just heard the name wrong. And he'd been talking about it And I was like, I would play Duchess and Dragons. Like, why didn't they just name it that? That sounds so much better. And
Now, was she being funny or was she confused?
I think she was confused.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Duchess and Dragons.
I think, yeah.
Yeah. It sounds like an arena martial arts game. I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know. I think there's space for Duchess and Dragons to become a thing. Definitely. I just don't know what exactly it is.
Yeah, it's still brewing.
Yeah, we're just waiting on it.
Yeah.
So he said, like, okay, well, if you'll play Duchess and Dragons, I'll make that for you. And so that's kind of how our duet game got started. Was he like wrote this campaign and helped me like kind of come up with a character, and he made a lot of things for her, and I just got to throw in the parts that I thought were interesting and not worry so much about the rest. And then like 3-4 sessions in, I was totally hooked.
Yes. It took 3 or 4 sessions. Okay, but you got there. Yeah,
I got there.
Yeah. So what was that hook? I mean, like what was it that drew you in eventually? And as like, okay, I'm hooked now. What about it?
So I'm so glad you asked. It was when his like GNPC or his DMPC started talking to my character, and not so much like we got kind of out of the mechanics or the this thing happens and this thing happens, and got more into the role-playing aspects, I think, because I was kind of nervous. I didn't want to do something wrong. He'd been playing and I wasn't sure how it was supposed to go. But once that happened, it all kind of clicked for me.
Oh, yes. I had a similar thing where it wasn't very, maybe not as intimate as maybe what happened for you, but it was just after playing a couple of times, and like, and this is in 1978, by the way, playing it like a board game.
Mm-hmm.
I switched DMs. I played in this guy's campaign, and it was a difference between playing a campaign and a module. And we roll up his characters, and we start in a bar, and we start to play, and he goes, okay, this old man comes down out of the mountains, and he climbs up on a table, and he starts ranting about the orphan, but he's saying exactly what the old man is saying, and all of a sudden, like, wow, this game's this okay. Wow, now I understand the whole part of this game that I didn't get. It's not really described in the materials back in those days, right? And so you're definitely more on the spectrum of people who want to be in character. Maybe do you speak with an accent?
I do. Depending on the character. Yes.
Are you gonna drop one on us? A little accent?
No, I'm too nervous.
Beth Ball accent. Oh, come on! I haven't put you at ease yet. I'll do it. Like, I got a gnome that goes. He just bounces a lot, right? And he goes, yeah. Let's go. There.
Mine are not as exciting. So I have one character, Persephone. She speaks a little bit like this, and she enunciates her T's really, really carefully. And she's pretty bubbly and exciting when she's playing, but she's not totally sure. And I don't know. She's my favorite right now.
That's great. See, perfect. That's good. Okay, so we got a feel for you now. We've been able to, put you in sort of, how we mentally categorize the world into types of players. Now
I'm in a box.
We found the box, the Beth Ball box. We can pull it out of the drawers at any time and say, oh, there she is. So I'm imagining that we're leading up to, of course, Duet. It seems to me that this seems to be an extrapolation probably of how you've played Dungeons and Dragons for many, many occasions. You with your husband. Is that fair?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, definitely.
So how did that? So at what point did you start to think, hey, we could make a business out of this, or
We started wanting to make a resource, but it was a ways in, and part of it came about when we discovered that RPG Duet, this website that Jonathan was certain existed. He talked about it. It's so helpful with these things, blah, blah, blah. I was like, okay, you have to show me this website one day. And he was like, oh, it's not real. It's like, okay, well then we need to make it, because I think that probably should exist. And so, and we would see sometimes on Reddit somebody asking like, hey, I want to play D&D with my friend, or I want to play with my wife. Does anybody know anything for playing just one-on-one? And so there would be just a couple things, and then somebody would come in and say, this is only a group game, so just find a group. I was like, no, they just need help. And so I was like, okay, we're gonna do this. So that was kind of how we got started.
But you may look at that and think that it's kind of plain or simple, but I got to tell you that when I used to raise money for businesses, I used to there was one group of investors that I would go to, and they had a template you had to follow in order to pitch them to raise money. And the first thing was, we want your first slide to tell us what is the need that you've identified that is not fulfilled in the market. See, that's exactly what you did, right? It's like, there needs to be a resource for one-on-one D&D, and it's not out there, so you created it.
Yeah, and I'm so happy we did. It's like one of my very favorite things that we've ever done, or that I've ever done and taken part in. I love the community, and I think especially like people who are drawn to one-on-one play, it's just a really supportive space too. And it's been fun to like get to help people with different parts of their games. So yeah.
Okay, so you started this website. So there's this website, and this is a central part to who you are in the world of Dungeons and Dragons. Is this you've sort of staked out this territory of come to me with all your questions about playing one-on-one Dungeons and Dragons. So what's on this site? Let's give me sort of a mentally a view, and say the name of the site again too. Is it?
Yeah, so it's DnDDuet.com. So D, then the letter N, D, duet.com.
Right.
Yeah. So our site is a mix. It's primarily advice for playing one-on-one. We also talk about the adventures that we've made for one-on-one play. And so there are several duet adventures that you can buy on our website. That was a new addition this summer that we're really excited about. Right. And we also link to our adventures on DM's Guild. And so we try to split the advice between things for DMs, things for players. We have some of my favorite pieces are oriented around people who maybe want their partner to play with them, but their partner's kind of resistant. So kind of trying to speak into that experience, don't go a year of asking your partner to play with you, or asking a friend or whoever you want to play with you, one of your kids. And so to kind of make that easier to latch onto. And then I love having advice for players, because I think that's, I don't know, that to me is another space in D&D, and maybe I just haven't done the research the right way, or just haven't found it yet, but I think there's more things to say for players that we appreciate. And so we try to have something for everybody to some extent, while staying mostly focused on duet play.
Now, is it fair to say, I'm just guessing, but do you think that most of your fans are couples?
I think a lot of our fans are couples. I think that there are more than you think, especially in COVID. We've had a lot of people who play with their kids, which I think is really, really cool. And so sometimes it'll be, one parent and two children, but like the scale stuff still works about the same way. Sure. And so some people play with their friends. One of the friends we've made through D&D, they played growing up together. So these two brothers played. And so I think it's kind of who lives in your house, who wants to play with you, right, is one of the ways it primarily works out.
Right. Okay, well that's great. Yeah, I was so you kind of came into it through Dungeons and Dragons. It's interesting because I think some people would say that that's an interesting choice, because Dungeons and Dragons is not one of the games that's known for being a story game, or a chamber LARP. There's kind of the different category of games that most people would say lend themselves better to a story-oriented game than Dungeons and Dragons. But you feel like Dungeons and Dragons is a good game system for what you're doing?
I think so. And to me, it's super story-oriented. Story-oriented. We made a new word. Story-oriented.
How do you spell that, please?
I think we just skip to the middle. YN, maybe story-oriented.
You're going to want to trademark that real quick.
Done.
Done.
I don't know. And so there's some of this that I don't know that I can speak to because I haven't played very many other tabletop games. And so, but to me, the
If this
mechanics
is
in
working for you,
D&D,
yeah, just
don't worry about
stick
it.
with D&D. If it's working for you, great. Yeah.
But I think the mechanics serve as kind of a vehicle or a framework for the storytelling and the interaction, as well as I think combats are fun too, and things like that. So it has kind of these different elements that you can mix together. And then I think that's probably my favorite part of it is pulling a bunch of disparate pieces and then kind of what's a new thing that you can weave with this, and what type of story are you looking to tell?
Okay, so let's get into some of the what immediately come up as red flags, okay, or tricky
Okay.
parts of this, right? And I'm not trying to put you on the spot because I know you got good answers to these questions. So these are softballs, really. But I mean, it's like, so you think of Dungeons and Dragons as a group game. You said it earlier, like that you have a party and the party is balanced. You have the healer and the magician and the warrior, and if it's one-on-one play, what do you do?
So I think the first big thing that you do is it changes who the story is about. And so instead of the story being about a party of adventurers, you focus in on the one adventurer.
Okay.
And so I think
That's good, because usually with a party, everybody thinks it's about them.
yeah. That's I think one of the advantages. It really is about you. You can be right about that.
Right. Okay. That's great. Okay. Go
Um,
on. Okay. Go on.
okay. And so we always recommend that the DM has a character too, so that way the and you can play the other way. I just think scale wise and interaction, everything is a little bit easier if they have somebody to talk to and hang out with in the story world, because then I think it's
Sure.
easier to stay in character. You have somebody else to help you in combat and things like that. But otherwise,
When you DM and your husband's playing, you have do you how do you have your character not give away the secrets, or do you just play like a kind of a dumb character, like, yeah, that sounds good, boss, whatever you want to do?
I have in the game that I'm DMing right now, I actually have two characters. So one is a sidekick for his character, and the other is my DMPC. And so one is super bubbly, and she has lots of questions for the PC, but she's not always sure like what should happen. And then the other one is like really straightforward, and she's very smart, but she just doesn't talk very much. But I think it's kind of about presenting them with the question, and then like he is on the quest at the moment, and so like it's up to him, what do we do? So I think it's about orienting the story around, it's on your shoulders, you're the leader, you're in charge, this is your story, what are you going to do about it?
Right.
Yeah, sometimes I give things away.
Yeah, and I suppose that maybe you can subtly give clues that way as too, and I would suppose that the player is going to also realize, hey, this NPC is not here to answer all the GM mysteries of the world. This character is here to kind of cover my butt in case I get in trouble or something. Or somebody, like you said, somebody to talk to. Yeah, so I mean that's nice. So what about like in combat? I mean, one thing about D&D is that sometimes you can accidentally, do a lot of damage to someone, and party, combats, if you go too easy, then there's not the threat. If there's not the threat of death, there's not much excitement. But sometimes you push it too close. With a party, there's some flexibility in the sense that, the character's in bad shape and the other characters cover for them. It seems like if you just got one or two characters, there's not a safety net.
Yeah, I agree. I think you have to be careful. I think the main thing to watch out for in those situations is to just kind of decrease the number of things that your party is facing. And I accidentally messed that up recently in the game that I'm DMing. I forgot to like take out some people, so they had a really close call. I was like, oops, okay, that's too many things for them to be fighting. Just
Yeah, I
action
mean,
economy. It was a disaster.
yeah, I mean, a TPK, when there's only 2 characters, it seems like,
Yeah.
yeah, you can stumble
But
in.
they can run. You can run and leave
Sure.
if you need to. But I think it's more about just as the DM, you're going to have to make adjustments for your party regardless. And so DMs for one-on-one just tend to have, I think you should have kind of a smaller size combat. So not as,
Yeah.
they're fighting one big thing or maybe two medium-sized things. We do recommend too kind of bumping up the character a little. So they have maybe one fancy magical item that kind of helps them out.
Right.
Maybe they have an animal companion like my dog here to kind of help them out. And I think things like that.
Oh, Beth, you that's warming to the heart. I gotta say, when I play Dungeons and Dragons, one of the first thing I always ask for the DM for is, can I have a dog?
I always want a wolf.
Dogs are great. Dogs are like they're guards. I mean, like nothing. If you've got a dog, nobody's ever gonna sneak up on you. Like, they can sniff things and and you talk about always having someone to talk to.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, they're right there, ready to listen.
That's right. Okay, so let's see. Is there anything else about the site before we get into we're going to obviously hit some of your products that you've worked on, like the Crystalline Curse Trilogy. But anything else about the site that we should mention?
We are doing a cool thing on the site right now where we have we're working on kind of a serialized campaign that we're still experimenting with a little bit. And we want it to be kind of a full duet campaign, but that's like a really huge thing to take on. And we have a Patreon where we create adventures every month for our patrons. We're like, okay, what if we just released these kind of chunk by chunk on our website? And so we've been doing that over the summer, and it's called Land of Vampires. So if you want some free modules or to give one-on-one play a try, I think that's really cool.
Well, let's talk about Land of Vampires then, and we'll come back to
Okay.
Crystalline Curse Trilogy.
Okay.
So this is a campaign. And by the way, I was reading the marketing text for it, and or on your website talking about it, and it talked about the vampire being interested in a PC, and then that didn't flag anything for me. And then you said, well, if you're playing maybe with your sister, maybe you don't want to have a. And I realized, interested in the PC. I understand. and you had nice words there encouraging people to don't be confined to male-female relationships and this sort of thing. So thank you for that. That's good. So this it struck me that there was some inspiration from the Curse of Strahd, perhaps, into this.
Yeah, there's a lot of inspiration from Curse of Strahd. It's based on we started to run Curse of Strahd between the two of us, but then we veered off really quickly away from it. So I think he ran like one chapter from it, but we had so much fun in this demi-plane, this place in the Shadowfell Shadowlands called Steimherod, and it was really cool. And so we were kind of coming up, okay, what adventures do we want to write next? I was like, okay, we need to write this campaign. And so some of it came about with people asking us, how would you adapt Curse of Strahd for a one-on-one play? And I think the answer to that is really easy. You get rid of Tatiana. I think that's her name. I'm always worried I'm going to get it wrong.
I always run my own adventures. I have this big gap in my knowledge where people start talking about really famous adventures like Curse of Strahd, and I just like nod and go, I know there's a vampire.
Yeah. But we're like, we need a structure where you have this person is the main character, but we wanted a more interesting kind of higher power, potential enemy, potential ally for them in the form of the vampire. So yeah, that's why the special language around interested in. So it doesn't have to be romantic, but there aren't usually people who are here that aren't, in Steimherod, who aren't already from Steimherod. So like whatever relationship works for you in your game.
Yep. That's
this
great.
vampire is like, what are these people doing? And then we have some other things for them to do while they kind of build towards that.
Well, anytime you have a vampire stories just scream romance. You know, I mean, there's the best vampire stories have a romance in them. It's part of the genre. But yeah, you also given the out. It doesn't have to be that, and that sort of thing. So you mentioned that you went off. I'm looking down the list because I remember one of your projects talks about like a side quest from Curse of Strahd. Help me
Totems of
out.
the Spalach Woods.
Okay, yes. And so was that because you were playing Curse of Strahd and you and your husband, is this what you and your husband did sort of on accident and it went off and did your own thing, so you made a module about it?
So that module is Land of Vampires is absolutely that.
Yes,
but that module is actually
not
totally
that
different.
module. It's a different module.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm starting to get confused. Okay, land. Okay, that's hilarious. That's great. I mean, you obviously really you're obviously doing this because it's what you like to do. I mean,
it's so much fun.
This is born out of your own experiences playing with your husband now, right, Jonathan?
Yeah, absolutely. And it's one of our favorite things to do together, and so we wanted to create something that would allow other people to connect in that way. And I think if we think about like what does our world need, I think we need more of people who feel connected to others. And I think storytelling is a really powerful vehicle for kind of working through what's going on in your life. So when I started playing D&D was leading up to my comprehensive exams for my PhD, and I was so stressed. And it like was a cause of a lot of anxiety for me. But instead of like turning over, oh my gosh, am I going to fail my exams? I got to think about, okay, what spells should I probably pick out for this encounter? And that's a lot more fun question to ask. And it stays low stakes and everything. And it was like, I think collectively as a world, like need this. And I definitely did at the time. And so,
yes,
yeah, it's born out of that.
We need deeper connections with each other and vampires and
vampires.
Duchesses. Let's not forget.
We need duchesses. We need werewolves. We need all the things. We need fae. Whatever it can be, all of it. We need it. Yeah.
Oh, excuse me. So it's funny. You mentioned that connection while at school. I have to tell a story about my one of my best friends ever, who unfortunately passed away a few years ago. But we've dedicated our Chaldea project to him. His name's CJ, and I met CJ. We went to the same college together, going back in time, like 1981, maybe something like that. And we were in a class called a Pascal programming class. And I'm like sitting here with my 3x5 cards, writing up stats during class on an elder dragon. And he's sitting right there, just right there. And he's like, "Is that Dungeons and Dragons?" Yeah. Cool. And he was like new to school and like, can I get into a game? Yeah, sure. But that's the way it was. That's the way Dungeons and Dragons is. Like, oh, you want to play our Dungeons and Dragons game? Come on over. And then you're friends for life, Sorry about the going down memory.
Oh, I love that.
Yeah.
I like him looking at your note card and figuring out what it was.
Yes. I even remember the dragon I was doing stats on.
That's cool.
Yeah, crazy. So, okay, so let's go back to the Crystalline Curse trilogy, because is this the first duet series that you wrote?
The first one of those, First Blush, was the very first adventure that we wrote, and it was based on that first adventure in Duchess and Dragons that Jonathan wrote for me. And so it's specifically oriented around helping someone who's new to D&D learn how to play, as well as helping someone get started with a duet game.
Okay, and so wait, there is really a Duchess in this game?
There's almost a Duchess. There is in our game, in our version of it, and the campaign that sprang out from it. And this one, it depends kind of on which character. We made some pre-generated characters for it, so people could like jump right in. And I think one of them,
Beth, I want to play the Duchess.
Well, so you have to be her daughter, I think.
That's good. That means I will be Duchess someday.
You will be Duchess soon.
I will. Yeah, I'm Duchess in waiting.
Yeah, you can
I'm
crown
still
yourself Duchess now.
I'm still her Grace, right? Duchess. A Duke was the Grace title, right? Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
okay, that's
Yeah,
really all I wanted. I wanted people to say Your Grace when they speak to me.
yeah.
That's yeah. And so, what do you do in this adventure?
Well, Your Grace, so in the adventure you start, we broke up the kind of exploration, having a conversation and having a combat in the first part of the adventure. So you are traveling, you're about to teleport basically. So you are kind of saying goodbye to your friends in the castle. You're about to teleport. And then so you kind of go through that at the beginning of the adventure. And then instead of teleporting to the place where you thought you were going, which
Oh,
was,
good.
a festival, you teleport to a frozen mountain where you find a tomb of an ancient warrior. It's so much more exciting than the party you were going to.
You see that's by the way a great tip. You've actually subtly put into there a great tip for more experienced Dungeons and Dragons players, which if you're as a GM are tired of your players abusing spells like teleport, then every time they teleport, roll a die and see if they randomly end up in where was it again?
A mountain prison holding an ancient warrior who you alone have the special amulet that will bring him back to life or her back to life.
Yeah, see
Thank goodness you were there.
that could happen, right? That could happen.
I think that's a great plan. Yeah.
Yeah.
Whatever's going on with this spell, you've teleported somewhere weird. I'm sorry.
Yeah, you just gotta make them unreliable. Okay, so you have a series of these three adventures, all within the
Mhm.
Crystalline Curse: First Blush, Second Glance, and third time's the Charm.
Yeah.
That are basically a nice little mini campaign that you could play
Hmm.
to get warmed up duet style playing. All
Yeah.
right.
And
Yeah. Go ahead, please.
oh, I was just gonna say, so in the second one, things open up quite a bit, and so you have options of kind of where you can go and what you can do, and there's like a little mystery. There is a werewolf too, just in case. And then in the third one, you kind of make this big momentous decision about the person that you've been adventuring with this whole time. And so I don't know, I think that they're really fun.
A momentous decision. Okay, that's good. That's good. Yeah. Yeah. Okay. So let's go on to Spring Court Quest. Now, I guess so. So this looks like a Fae sort of adventure, right?
It is, yes.
So I'm always curious when people do a phase. I mean, it seems like a tricky subject matter. Do you think of that, or is it just me? Do I have like a weird
I don't
block?
know. Why is it? I have never thought of it that way before. Why does it seem tricky?
For me, I tell you, because I always for myself, like I have like this expectation of wondrous fey magic and mystery and bacchanalian and an edgy yet, I mean,
Hmm.
like I have too many conflicting things, I think, hitting my brain about what it means to be fey, and several of them seem like really daunting in terms of trying to deliver it, right?
Right. I get that. I know. I think with the Fae that they are like, I think like any other like, because we're just based off of humans, we don't tend to know other like, I mean, we know dog species, but outside of that, we get a little bit limited. But I think that Fae are kind of just like exaggerated in terms of personality or hyper. A lot of my Fae are really dedicated to or connected to the earth around them, and that's where their magic comes from. And so I think it just depends. I don't know. So with that adventure, it started as like a cute Easter adventure. It was like, okay, people can't have Easter bunny hunts with wherever they were going to go. Instead, they're at home. How could you have an Easter bunny hunt at home, or just what could you hunt instead at your house? And so we were like, oh, well, you could just look for these little magical animals in the Feywild. And so that's where the adventure kind of started. And it grew from there into the Spring Court quest. But we kind of limited the problem you were talking about with the different types of or different personalities of the Fey to the kind of seasonal Fey courts. So the Spring Court is kind of like happy and jolly, and it's a little bit lighter. There's some tricksiness. than some of the other courts. So like the winter court, I've always imagined as being like really dramatic and kind of high stakes emotionally, but it's also going to be like really poetically beautiful and kind of
Right.
like black and white but sparkly. And yeah.
Wow. Okay. Well, that's great. And I saw one thing that jumped out at me. You had a reference in there to Fey plants. What?
Uh-huh.
Can you
So
give me
there's
an
special.
example of a Fey plant? I'm imagining like this big mushroom with a pixie sitting on top of it or something. I don't know.
That sounds wonderful. We were thinking more just like normal plants, but kind of special.
Yeah.
So like you plant and you have like a really special, I don't know, azalea, and it has kind of like a magical property. So taking something normal and making it a little bit spectacular is kind of how I think of the Feywild. But yeah, the purpose of the adventure is to find a pseudocorn, which is like a miniature rainbow unicorn that's sparkly and wonderful.
A miniature rainbow okay, I think I got
Yeah.
that. Yeah, a rainbow unicorn.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Not a normal unicorn, a special tiny one that's sparkly. And it can travel around with you.
Sure. Yeah.
Fill your days with delight. Exactly.
Well, that sounds fantastic. What does a miniature rainbow unicorn do? Like, what does it eat?
So I think it probably eats whatever the fantasy equivalent of like Skittles is. Like maybe little berries, but if you have like candy in your world, definitely that. So I can't remember what special ability we gave it. It was something cool, but just off the top of my head at the moment, I don't remember.
There's a new fantasy equivalent of Skittles. That's we got to work on that one a little bit.
Yeah.
Fiddles.
Fiddles.
Pickles. Fickles. That is to play
Pickle.
with the word
I
fickle.
like that.
Close to
Yeah.
Skittle. We could do something with that, right?
Pickles.
Okay, the Swamplands Witch.
So I love this one.
I gotta say, this one jumped out at me too, because I saw there's a witch and there's a temple to Gaia and there's a titan. I mean, like, okay,
Mhm.
yeah. Tell me more.
Yeah. So about like 2/3 of the way through, it kind of veers off track a little bit in a cool way. I just think it's one of those like surprise. Okay, now you need to go do this thing when you think the adventure is going to be over. But we wanted to set up the somewhat lower level parties in this adventure on this little boy's gone missing, so they're trying to find him. And while they're looking, kind of searching around his house for clues, they find this eyeball, and tracking where it goes, they end up at the house of the Swamplands Witch.
They find
And her name is
an eyeball.
it's a magical eyeball that can like see stuff. So she's just been keeping an eye on things.
Oh, it's a magical eyeball. But does it look like an
Yeah,
eyeball? Is it all gooey with stuff hanging off the
I
back?
think so. Maybe not stuff. I don't know. I think it depends on your own preferences. Do you want it to be gooey and sticky, or do you just want it to be
Depends on
brown?
who you're running it for, maybe. And
Yeah, exactly.
yeah.
What's their kind of their goo meter that they feel positively about versus not? Like, where's the line? Don't cross it, kind of.
The goo meter. I'm gonna post on chat. Okay, we're running a high goo meter here.
Just be prepared. It's gonna be fine.
I added an E, so it's a goo meter. Okay.
Ooh, so it's fancy.
Okay.
So they go to the witch's house after kind of working their way through the swamp. So we have a few things for them to run into in the swamp. And they go to the witch's house and kind of find out. And she's kind of like a mentor or ally type of character, but she's pretty powerful. We didn't really want her to be the villain, but it's fine if characters go in kind of thinking that she is. And I think that's one of the neat things about her character. And so she's going to kind of clue them into where the little boy is and what's going on. And then it becomes like this a necromancer kind of quest after you leave the swamp.
I love NPCs where you're not quite sure.
Yeah.
Like,
and they can go either way.
Yeah, it's it's sometimes hard to get it to strike that line where somebody is like wants to trust them but thinks that they probably shouldn't, and that sort of thing. So we got somebody join us from Sao Paulo. Oh,
Welcome.
yeah. Hi, welcome.
That's
To the
cool.
bone, to the bane. Good. Okay. I'm going to say hi to Mira SBR. We don't get many people from other countries calling in and saying hi. So, okay. So, let's see. We have, the totems of the Zvalich, Lich.
I've always said Svalich, but I'm sure that's wrong. That was
All I
the
kn-
Curse of Strahd adventure.
Yeah, all I know is that the last 4 letters are LICH.
Yeah. So that's the name of the forest in Ravenloft. I'm sure that
Oh,
there's a
okay.
reason that it has Lich too. So yeah, I'm sorry. I can't
Yeah.
take credit for that. That would be really cool, but that's not on me.
Okay, so it's not about a like a Czechoslovakian lich or something like that, right? Eastern.
No, it is about a oh my gosh, I just forgot the name of it. A Leshen is the kind of big thing you're hunting in that adventure is really intense. I had so much fun with his stat block, but he's a party killer, so you have to be careful with that one. But it's a vampire campaign. I think it's okay for it to be a little bit higher stakes. But
Right.
yeah. That one I think is, I don't know. I had a lot of fun writing that one, and I wrote it. I first wrote it as a group adventure that's part of an anthology, the Blood Ties anthology. And I talked to the people I was doing the anthology with, and I was like, I really want to transition this for our duet audience too. And so it got kind of I changed the location and some of the mechanics and things and kind of moved it into a duet adventure that takes place in Ravenloft.
It strikes me, we were talking earlier about sort of the challenge of making sure you don't accidentally TPK the party, when it's a party of 2, one
Yeah.
piece. Well, the great thing about Ravenloft is that, instead of killing them, you turn them into vampires or turning them into werewolves.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. You just keep going from there.
Exactly. Totally. Yeah. It's like instead of being upset that they're dead, their eyes light up at the thought that they're now the undead.
Yeah. Congratulations. You are what you were trying to destroy.
Yes.
We're doing a new campaign now called Vampires versus Humans. Go. That'd be pretty exciting.
Okay, let's go. Oh, Beth, you're great. I love you. You're good. In the heart of the forest. Now, I just got to jump in and say that I saw in the marketing test it says designed for duet play or parties, and I thought oh, Beth Ball is branching out now.
Mm-hmm. It is a branch out, but I was like, okay, there's so many cool designers on DM's Guild already, and so do we need more? I mean, yes, we need like more writers and more people creating things. I think the answer to that question is always yes. But I actually wrote that one as part of the RPG writer workshop, which if you all are interested, it's starting in November this year. So the signups are going on right now just for our lovely live audience. Anyway.
Good.
So it's primarily since it's like on our site and we wrote it and I wrote it and everything, I was kind of thinking it's probably going to be played mostly as a duet, but it can be played with a group. But that one I totally fell in love with the main character, and I thought that she was so interesting, and she's in that one too, kind of an ally figure.
Is she the druid that survived and the other ones are dead?
Yes.
Right. I mean, that's the story, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
You're right.
Yeah. So a druid there's a druidical circle, and everybody in the circle's died except for one of them. And and so, yeah, I mean, my first thought was, well, the one that's left is probably the one who killed the rest of them.
So they sacrifice themselves to become woodwoads.
Oh, don't give it away, Beth. Oh, yes.
It's at the beginning.
We love spoilers. Yeah.
Okay. That's at the beginning. They learn that really fast.
Oh, they sacrifice themselves to become woodwoads.
That's what happened to the other druids.
Like the Gaelic woads who would put the psychedelic mushrooms on their bodies or something like that. I can't remember.
So in these cases, they had their hearts cut out and put into a tree stump, and then they become an alive tree because they're trying to save the forest.
Yeah, become one with the forest.
They're trying to protect it from this other super sketchy, powerful lady. who is like kind of the villain in the adventure, and I love her. She's so cool. So it's kind of like if you aren't successful, then this person is maybe going to turn herself into a wood woad to save the forest and try to stop this other kind of phoenix entity.
Great. I can't add to that. That's just fantastic.
The adventure is like, it's so much fun. I love it.
Okay, let's see. Tales of Eldura. This is a YouTube channel that you're doing, and you're playing in the Baldur's Gate universe. Is that right?
Yeah. So we're running through Descent into Avernus, but I wanted to make some pretty substantial changes. So I was like, okay, we're just gonna move this into our homebrew world, and then I can kind of take what I want and leave the rest, and nobody will be upset or confused, hopefully. Right. So we do that on Fridays at 7 p.m. and it's, he plays right over there, and so it's kind of like this, but we're playing D&D. We're talking over Discord and stuff. But yeah, we stream every week and are kind of working our way very slowly through the campaign. We're not very, some people I think are really fast in sessions, and we're not. So. Oh
my God, I'm glad you said that. Beth, I hear you. That's like the main reason I haven't done any streaming. I haven't personally run in again. I'm getting up my nerve, I guess, to do it eventually. But like, I don't GM very fast. I'm not. And as I get older, I'm not on it. I'm like, oh, what the heck was that rule? Like, hold on, let me look it up. And, it's I got to get more on it. Snappy.
I think that you would be great. And I think you can just say like, hey, I'm gonna look for this thing, and go from there.
Yeah. I just have to have a designated entertainer at the table. Like, okay, all right, Bobby, it's up to you. Entertain the crowds. I gotta find the rules.
Bobby's gonna sing for you. I'm gonna be just over here for a second. That sounds great. I think it's a wonderful plan. But yeah, we're having so much fun, and it's we put it on YouTube after we play.
Okay, I'm sorry, I cut you off, please.
It's okay. No, we're having a lot of fun with our stream. I was really nervous about streaming at first, just because because we usually play just the two of us, and it tends to be like a way to relax and have fun. And as an introvert, I was like, I don't know about taking this thing and then doing it for other people. And then there are people who are super amazing at playing D&D, but anyway, we just kind of wanted to say like, while we write about this thing, and here's how you play one-on-one, and we wanted there to be more examples of that sort of play. Like, it doesn't have to be perfect. And
I mean, that's a good point. I struggle with, like, I don't watch much Twitch, hardly at all. I mean, to me, it's I don't know. I really have trouble getting into it. And the fact when people started watching RPGs or video games, anything on Twitch, I was like, really? Like, Jeff Grubb once told me, Dungeons and Dragons, excuse me, 20 minutes of excitement crammed into 4 hours, and that's like,
I love that.
I mean, to me, but what I have figured out is like a lot of people watch Twitch to find out how to play. Like, like I want to watch, and which makes sense. Like D&D is kind of a complex game. It's fun to see how other people run it. And so now I'm thinking about Duet and realizing, well, yeah, this is a unique form of Dungeons and Dragons, and you can't just go onto Twitch and watch somebody doing that. So you're thinking to yourself, well, I guess we're going to have to do it ourselves because there's no other. Yeah.
We had a lot of people ask us for it, and I was really nervous about it, but I was like, okay, we can totally do this. And I'm so glad that we did. It's been really fun. But yeah.
Yeah. I mean, you've said you were worried about it. You do it for fun. You've said that you're an introvert. So, but it's okay. You're hanging in there all right.
No disasters so far. We're all here. So.
Oh, good. That's yeah. I mean, I asked this is kind of a I've been in the gaming industry for a while, and one thing that you see is that people get into the industry to make first, most people that start businesses, and you're running a business, they start a business around gaming because they really love gaming, and then the further they get pulled into it, oftentimes they quit having fun playing. It becomes just a business. It sounds like you're still having fun playing.
I'm having a great time. Yeah.
Oh, good.
But we
me too, by the way. I don't understand those other people at all.
Yeah.
I just run into them once in a while. I was like, oh, what a sad story.
You have to take a month off or something. Yeah, I know. Yeah, I'm having a great time. But we play for fun usually every Saturday and Sunday, just the two of us, and don't really worry about any of the business things. And I don't know, starting out, if we thought it was going to be a business. We wanted it to be a resource, and it was like, it would be nice if it kind of paid for itself and maybe paid us a little bit for our time. But this summer I started writing full time, and so that's been so cool.
I think we're leading up to Buried Heroes, perhaps.
Maybe.
Yeah. Well, I mean, and you talk about, is it a business or not? But on your site you're selling it's your first novel, right? It's part of a series, Age of Azuria.
Yeah. And now DnD Duet and my books are like, we're definitely thinking of it as a business now. I know that we kind of, that starting out that we saw kind of what it could be, but if I can, while it's here.
Please, of course.
Ooh.
Oh.
So this is my first novel, and then it's also on the wall behind me. But yeah, it actually, this story started out of our duet game, the Duchess and Dragon story. So there is a Duchess in here if you're looking for one. There is a Duchess. And so
it's got to be a thing for you. It's like the artist, where if you look close enough somewhere, you always find a little penguin somewhere. The Duchess is like your signature somewhere at this point. Yeah. So I have decreed.
Thank you. But yeah, so I published it in May of this year. And so the second novel is coming out on December 8th. And so I'm super excited about that.
That's fantastic. Is it available for Kindle?
Yes.
Okay, I'm going to get it on Kindle.
Yes, thank you.
Yeah, of course. So was this the first of your projects that resulted in a physical product?
Yes, it was.
So this is your first actual print, like here's I mean, because you were obviously really excited to show it, but you've done all these other projects that made me think, oh, maybe it's the first one you could actually hold in your hands.
Yeah, so I've seen, and it's been like really fun moments of somebody like printing off one of our adventures, so we'll see it in like a little notebook or with things that they've made for it, and I'm like, oh, we made that. But yeah, I still think there's something about having like a physical thing.
Yes.
And it's like when we play our Tales of Eldura, with it being online, I'm a really tactile gamer, and so it's hard for me. I'm like, I have to, and D&D Beyond is super easy to navigate. I'm like, where is that? Oh, and I don't know. I like to feel the things in my hand and write physical notes and all of that, and just kind of like really be in this space. So yeah, I like that the books are physically here.
So what is it about, Buried Heroes?
So Buried Heroes is about connection and the kind of balance between personal freedom and working together with others. But it follows a young half-elf, Yeliath Amastasia, and over the course of the narrative, she becomes a druid, and it actually follows that kind of first bit of First Blush, where you accidentally transmigrate into a frozen chamber and find something, but she's had an amulet that is from her father, who she's never met, that's kind of really significant in the world of Azuria. But I think it's really fun. It's such a good time writing it, and it's been really cool to share it with others. So.
Well, and your degree in school was English literature, right? So this is a bit of a full circle back to your academic roots. Is that fair to say?
Kind of. So I think the circle works the other way, because I always wanted to write, but I was like, you can't make money as a writer, so you have to kind of figure something else out. And I was like, okay, here's what I'll do.
I'm sorry, I can't make money as a writer, so I'm going to publish Dungeons and Dragons.
Well, so no, D&D was like the thing that brought everything together.
Right.
But yeah, so I thought that I would need like a more steady something while I like tried to be a writer, instead of like, what if you just wrote stuff and then saw how it went?
Right.
But you don't know that when you're feeling nervous about putting things out into the world. So it was around when I was feeling super disillusioned with academia, and I was like, I don't know that I want to do this.
Right.
It's stressful, and then the job market is terrible, and so D&D was kind of that stress relief, and then we started selling adventures, but then I kind of was able to carve out enough space to start actually writing, and now I'm like, oh well, I can totally do this, and then I'll just finish my degree and that'll be that. I'll just seem super fancy, but you do have a really fun job.
That's great. Well, I wish you the best of success for it. I have 2 more questions.
Okay.
I noticed that I was impressed with the art that you have, like on the covers. You've got some really nice art, and no offense, but oftentimes smaller publishers of RPG materials, sometimes the art's kind of like the thing that you have to value it for the content. But your covers are great. I just want how did you do you find who does your art?
So for the novels or for the adventures?
Well, I didn't know they were different ones. I just happened to notice a trend after seeing about the 4th piece in a row of art that I really liked, including Unburied Heroes. I was like, well, this is really, really great art, because it is kind of was something distinctive for your books, because a lot of times the art isn't so good, like I said,
Yeah. So I found I do have a cover designer for my novels. She runs 17 Studio Book Designs. If anyone's looking for a cover artist, she's so cool, and she's a fantasy author too. But I was kind of looking around, and she had these covers as kind of like a pre-made set, and I absolutely fell in love with them. And the books were still kind of floating around. I just started the writing process. I was like, okay, I know with every fiber of my being that these are my book covers. So I got in touch with her and got them. So that was really lovely. But yeah, they're super pretty. Do you want to see this one too? Ooh.
Yeah, of course I do. See, it's a lovely piece, Beth. It's a lovely piece.
I love
what
it.
What was the artist's name again?
Her name is Anjane. And she's is also a fantasy author, but her business is 17 Studio Book Designs. So
17. Okay, that's fabulous. That's great.
Well,
I think probably the short answer is that you cared. I mean, it was clear that you wanted to get good art, and so you went out and you looked around for it, and eventually found it. Okay, my last question for you, which I ask every guest on the show this season, is like, all right. So what do you hope to bring to Dungeons and Dragons? I mean, this is a game that goes back 50 years. Is that right? Doing my math? Yeah, something like that. Close enough. I mean, it goes back a long time, and a lot of people have worked on it. What do you hope that you will be able to bring to this, what in my opinion, one of the 2 best games ever published in the history of the world?
So definitely the sense of connection, like we said before, but kind of adding to that, I think that the collaborative storytelling aspect, especially when playing one-on-one, has some really cool possibilities for creating the world that we want to see. Because if we can't see something in fiction or in our imagination or whatever form of make-believe we're using, we can't bring that thing into the world. We have to be able to kind of foresee it first. And so in D&D, we get to be these heroic versions of ourselves, and we get to take on forces of evil that have motivations. They want something. They make sense. And so I don't know. So for me, what I would really love to be able, like, if we're thinking about kind of global problems, or like what my kind of I don't know, I hope to be able to kind of bridge thinking about and working towards solutions for climate change with D&D on top of kind of that source of connection. So how can we kind of expand the time scales at which we're thinking about working on things, and how can we continue to see agency and empowerment when problems seem overwhelming?
Yeah. Well, that's a great answer. That's fantastic. Beth, you have been a delightful guest. Thank you so much for Yeah.
Thank you.
All right.
I
Well,
had so much fun.
yes. Me too. All right, this wraps up another episode of Fireside with Peter Adkison on Gen Con TV. Next week on October 21st, we will have a Fireside doubleheader. That's right. My guest last week, we had to cancel because of technical difficulties with Willie Abiel. So he is going to come back next week after Lydia Van Hoy, who is our scheduled guest for next week. So double feature next week, Lydia Van Hoy and Willie Abiel. So that's going to be great. I'm going to have to make sure I have a nice cushy chair for this one. It'll be fun. But that is a whole week away. So don't worry. We have lots of other great programming here on Gen Con TV, of course. On Friday at 2 p.m. Pacific time, we have Table Takes with special guest Glass Cannon Unplugged, talking about their new Kickstarter, Frostpunk. Woo. And on Monday, as usual, 6 p.m. Pacific, we have Board Games with the Brothers Murph. And then on Wednesday, 1:30 p.m. Pacific, we have Board Games with This Game Gets Dicey. And then at 4 o'clock, back to me with guest Lydia Van Hoy, followed by Willie Abiel. If you miss any of our shows, you can find all of our streams about a day or two later on the Gen Con Video YouTube channel. And also on there, you have all my old episodes of Fireside where I interviewed many of the people who worked on Dungeons and Dragons back at TSR, Wizards of the Coast in the 90s, and many of the people I worked with at Wizards of the Coast during the 90s in the publishing of Magic the Gathering. So check those out. If you want to connect with other Gen Con fans, be sure and join the Gen Con Discord server. Yep. Also, please remember to follow, subscribe, turn on your notifications, and tell your friends about our channel. So thanks once again to Beth Ball, our studio manager, Marcus Mays, our producer, Derek Gooder, to Dungeon Masters Guild for introducing us to new voices in Dungeons and Dragons, to Gen Con TV for hosting us, and most of all, thank you for watching.